Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of McCormick Care Foundation's podcast. Today, we'll explore the heartwarming story that characterizes the McCormick community. I'm your host, Michelle Hancock, and I'm the Executive Director at McCormick Care Foundation. And today, we have a truly special episode lined up for you, one that promises to resonate deeply with you all. In our ongoing effort to share stories from inside McCormick and shed light on the work of the foundation, we're bringing you a first-hand account, a journey filled with resilience, hope, and yes, even humor. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with someone who is a generous supporter of McCormick Home and the foundation, a man whose story embodies the essence of caregiving and community. Before we get started, I would like to thank you, the listeners, for tuning into this podcast because everyone listening supports our efforts, and we truly, truly appreciate that. So without further ado, let me extend a warm welcome to our guest today, Mr. Don Cunningham. Don is a cherished family member of McCormick Home and a devoted caregiver to his wife, Lynn, who is a resident here at McCormick Home. Don, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome.
So to kick things off, could you provide us with a glimpse into your life with Lynn?
Well, it's an interesting story. We met in Oshawa. Lynn was a nurse. And she loved, in the prenatal ward, loved the little babies and everything. So she had her career there. And I was in the financial services industry. And we had met at a singles dance. So there was one of the local hotels actually had every Friday night, they would have a singles dance. So I went in and ended up meeting her, danced with a few people, and we kind of had a little bit of a connection. And so I said to her, what's a girl like you doing in a place like this? And she said, well, I'm here to meet a man. And I said, well, I'm here to meet a woman. Where are you from? And she said, oh, you wouldn't know. It's a little town outside of London. Now, we're in Oshawa at the time.
Yeah.
And she said, a little town outside of London. And I said, oh, where's that? And she said, Glencoe. And my father was the high school principal.
Oh, you're joking.
And I knew her name after she told me her single name.
Okay.
And I used to work for her father
Wow.
in the town. But I didn't realize that because my dad was the principal, whenever I met somebody, you know, from a relationship point of view, you don't really know the relationship the lady had with my dad as a principal. So I learned very early to say, well, I think I know the fellow that was the principal there, Mr. Cunningham. And she said, yeah, that was my principal. And I said, what did you think of him? And she said, well, he was a pretty good principal. He was firm but fair. And I said, well, I'm his son, Don. And she said, oh, my Lord. And we knew each other, but we had never really spent any time together because she's 4 years younger. So when I was in grade 12, she was in grade 9, so I didn't really know her, but I knew the family name.
Yeah.
So
you were off the hook then?
I was off the hook, and we started going out, and 2 or 3 years, and then we got engaged, and then it came to, well, where are we going to get married? Now, at the time, I had a lake home on Chemong Lake up north of Peterborough.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's beautiful up there.
Beautiful area. And because it was on an island, we thought we can't have the wedding because the septic tank couldn't handle a lot of people. So we decided, let's go to Vegas and let's get married in Vegas and invite people.
So why Vegas?
It's a party well, back in those days, this is 30 years ago, It was a party town, entertainment. It was a destination. A lot of, I guess nowadays it's beaches are destination weddings. Well,
right.
Back then Vegas was pretty popular. Yeah. So we decided that we would get married in Vegas, and we invited a whole lot of people. We gave them a year's notice that, hey, we're getting married in Vegas. This is the date. If you'd like to come down, we'll buy you dinner.
Yeah.
But you'll have to get your own way down and your own hotel. Well, unbeknownst to us, 42 people came down for the wedding. And half of them came because they love Vegas, and the other half came because they'd never been to Vegas, so it was a good reason.
So it was a good choice then.
It was a great choice, but here's the best part. We got married in a chapel at Treasure Island. We had a champagne reception at the Mirage, and we had a George Burns imitator. Now, for any of you older people, George Burns was a really great comedian.
Yeah.
And we hired him to come in and do at the champagne reception to do a little song and dance. So he told a few jokes and did a couple of songs and wished us well. And we had pictures with George in the middle with each couple. Yeah. So we were on one end, the couple on the other, and George in the middle. And we used to go into people's homes, and there was the wedding picture on their mantle, because it was a great wedding.
It was so fun.
Yeah. And then we had a buffet dinner at the Mirage upstairs. Yeah. And it was great. They had everything, and it was just a great party time. Our kids loved it because we were both second marriages, right? Yeah. So we had a great time, and that kicked off a pretty good relationship between us. And that's why we ended up, as part of our goal when I retired, was to buy a fifth wheel and travel throughout the States. So we did a lot of, went all over California and New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona, all those areas, and settled in Phoenix for 24 winters. So we've had a great life together, and we often say to each other, or well, I say it, and she agrees now, that we just had a great path in our relationship and had a lot of good years. And hey, it's not so good now, but we're making the best of it.
Well, yeah. Making the best is sometimes what you have to do. Right. So during your travels, any particular reasons you ended up in Phoenix? I'm going to have a guess as to why that might have been.
Yeah. Well, when we traveled around, it was kind of, we went into a park in Phoenix, and we kind of used that as our home base in the winters. So we'd maybe take off for a couple of weeks and go to California and travel around, and then a couple of weeks we'd go to New Mexico. And we kept coming back to the park because we'd made some great friends there. In fact, there was one couple that they both passed on now, but they lived to be 98 and 96. Wow. And they were from Findlay, Ohio, and they always kidded that we were their damn Canadian kids, because when we went in, we were pretty young, in our 50s, and they were in their 70s. Yeah, it is young. Yeah. Young, it's very young. So we just fell in love with the park and the people. In fact, now that you mention it, it's probably the same feeling I have for McCormick, because it's kind of like you feel like that's where you want to be, or that's where you want your spouse to be, is in a good environment where it just feels right. It feels good. And I always said, if it feels good, do it. Yeah. So Phoenix felt good, and we still have a lot of friends there, but, a lot of them have passed on. But in fact, Lynn and I took some pictures in to show her today. And some of the pictures from Phoenix, and she remembered a lot of them. Yeah, smiled.
How those longer-term memories seem to be more ensconced.
Exactly. Yeah, I would ask her, who's that person? Because I couldn't remember. It was one of her golfing friends, and she'd mention the name, and I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty good to remember. She said, but I don't know where that was taken. I said, well, bless you for not knowing where it was taken.
Well, aside from where Lynn is currently at, they do say after you've been together for a while, you do tend to share a pretty ever this or that.
Yeah, I am still amazed when I'll mention that somebody passed on, or I'll mention that somebody had a baby that we know, and she'll remember a lot, and I'm amazed at long-term memory. With dementia patients is pretty good on the long-term memory.
So I know and have met Lynn, of course, many, many times. Mostly, of course, since she came to McCormick Home. But maybe can you give the listeners a little bit of an idea of
who Lynn is and what her personality is like.
Well, Lynn is probably one of the most patient and laid back, caring person I've ever met. She just blows me away with her ability to just take everything cool and calm. I'm a little expressive and, as friends say, disruptive and distracting, but she's very staying home, laid back, easygoing. And even now, you see signs of it, but then her wit is better than it's ever been. But I think her nursing background and her patience, and she's just always been very, very good at kind of taking things as they come and laid back. And we've been a pretty good combination because of that.
Well, it's nice to have the balancing effect. Yeah.
Opposites attract.
Yes, right? That's true, I think. So I'm also going to take a guess that maybe she was she enjoyed, let's say, the party life. Not to say she was a partier, but certainly loved to have a good time.
Oh yeah, she loves to have a good time.
I'm just taking your Las Vegas example.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because we both decided that would be great to have it there, but then you start thinking of how do we entertain people? Like the ceremony was it was videoed. It was a half hour long. The minister that married us was just so funny. She was almost an entertainer herself and made the wedding fun. And Lynn really liked that because she had had her hair done nice for the day and everything. And when she came down the aisle, I looked at her and I'd never seen her hair done like that. And it was just great to see her step away. She wanted to do something glamorous.
Yeah, lovely. And I'm also getting the impression that some of your traveling when you had your, what was it,
fifth wheel, yeah.
Yeah, was for the purposes of golfing as well.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, that's why we always said it would be nice to be away in the winters where we could play golf. And it was really, really amazing. We had some wonderful memories from golfing.
Yeah.
And she won a few championships as a golfer down there. The ladies' leagues and things like that. So she was pretty proficient at playing golf.
Maybe a little competitive.
Yes. Oh, yeah, she loved to beat me, which she did a few times. Yeah.
So did you play cards too?
Oh, yeah, we played a lot of cards and, euchre. And, yeah, she was competitive.
Yeah. Do you know my husband and I are so competitive, we can't play Risk together at all. Do you know
really?
the strategy game Risk? Yeah. It doesn't go well, but...
Well, we used to play crib here a fair amount when she was a little more aware, but then I could notice as time went by that, she would have trouble counting the points and she would move my peg instead of her peg once in a while. So we stopped that because I accused her of cheating because she would get 12 points and then she would maybe take 13 spots instead of 12. So we were competitive. But I'll bet you if we look back and kept records, she was a little better crib player than me. Yeah. So yeah, she hasn't lost her personality. She's gained a little more.
Yeah, I find that interesting how that happens, but I've seen it happen with others too. Yeah. I was just thinking about your financial background, and I think that's something that people don't always consider. A lot of people are very focused on planning their retirement, but they're not necessarily contingency planning, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'm sure this was an unexpected diagnosis for Lynn, for you.
Oh, definitely. In fact, it's interesting you say that because when COVID hit here in London, it seemed to be a lot more advanced than Arizona, because Arizona was very laid back. And I got a call from my daughter saying, "Dad, you need to get here. You and Lynn need to head home because they're going to close the border." And that was the first kind of sign they were going to close the border. And we had read reports that when people were leaving Arizona to go back to Canada, there was no hotels open, there was gas stations were closed, there was no toilet paper, there was nothing. So we had decided that we should sell because we found that there was quite a few of our friends had passed on. And every year you go back there to the park, there's fewer people because the kids want their parents to be home in Minnesota or Alberta. So we just found that, maybe we should sell our unit in Phoenix because we had ended up buying a place in Phoenix and sold the fifth wheel. And we thought we'd better head home. So the timing was good because I knew that Lynn was kind of having some issues and we should get it looked into, and thought it's a good time to sell the place. So we sold our place in 2 or 3 days and left right as COVID hit.
Wow.
And ironically, driving home from Phoenix, which a 3-day drive, restaurants were open, there was lots of motels, everything was fine. But when we came to the border in Port Huron, we looked and thought, oh my God, the border's closed because there was no cars at all lined up. And we came out and pulled up and
you never see that happen.
Never seen that
especially
before.
In Port Huron, yeah.
Yeah. So we came off the bridge and thought, the place is closed. We're not going to get back into Canada. But he just warned us that, we needed to stay. I think a couple of weeks we had to stay in our place, and they were going to check on us. And there was $1 million fine then if you broke quarantine from your home and they found out.
Oh, wow.
So it was really at the beginning of
Yes,
COVID.
yes.
So that was quite an experience for Lynn and I to go through this whole COVID thing. And And unfortunately, when she came to McCormick, she didn't really appreciate, nor did I, the benefits here because everything was in a shutdown and masks and things like that. Yeah. So just recently, it's been nice to sometimes not even wear a mask when you came into McCormick.
Yeah, in the nicer weather, yeah. I was just thinking what a short period of time that all must have been between you crossing the border and then Lynn's diagnosis to then Lynn's arrival here.
Yeah. Well, she ended up 6 weeks in the hospital because I didn't realize it, but a part of the Parkinson's and part of the oncoming dementia was that, and this is my bad because she always did her own pills. Okay. And I wasn't keeping track because she was pretty good at doing it right. But apparently she got them mixed up. And after about 3 or 4 days, she just seemed to be in a fog and didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say that was your bad, though.
Well,
I mean, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I should have been watching a little closer, though. But anyway, by the time 6 weeks in the hospital, by the time they got her kind of stabilized and everything, and then said that, okay, we can't do anything more for her, and we basically need the bed. And that's where LHIN got involved.
Yeah.
And we just kind of looked at the various choices. So it was because I think we were blessed that the hospital wanted the bed.
Yes.
And
yes.
so that they were able to get us into a long-term care home quicker.
Yeah, and especially during that time frame. Everything was becoming really heightened in a whole bunch of ways. And probably a hospital is not where you want it to be anyway.
So about 6 years ago, Lynn was diagnosed with Parkinson's and was having some challenges, but she still was golfing and active and everything. And then after a brief stay in hospital, she ended up entering McCormick here, which was amazing because I was totally incapable of looking after her at our condo, and the LHIN organization were very helpful, and we got into McCormick with 3 days notice. So it was wonderful that we got in that quickly. I guess it's based on the assessment of the person and the caregiver. So we're very grateful and thankful to be here at McCormick.
Yeah, well, so much in that. I'm just thinking about your time in traveling back and forth to Phoenix, traveling around the United States. That must have been a lot of fun, especially as you got to escape the winter.
Oh, definitely.
So a couple of snowbirds you were.
That's right, we were. And we were blessed to have 24 good years there.
Yes, no doubt.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, did you start to see signs or symptoms before Lynn's diagnosis?
Yes, actually in Phoenix, one day she fell off her bicycle, and proud that she is, she didn't tell me about it. I learned that from a neighbor. And then one day she fell in the sand trap on the golf course. And again, she didn't tell me, but I knew something was wrong, because it's not like Lynn to be falling or slipping in a sand trap. So we knew something was up, and then we had her diagnosed here in London when we came home.
And so you talk about a quick turnaround. I mean, from the diagnosis to then being in McCormick home. And I know for so many people I speak with, they would be wondering, how the heck did you manage that? What did that look like? And you know, I know we've had a couple conversations in the past about the fact that, to your point, yes, it's not a wait list that is, you know, if there's 800 people on the list and you're 801, that you remain 801. Then I believe there is a matrix that goes to all of this that takes into a lot of different pieces into account. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it is also about timing in terms of, you know, when your name gets on the list and all of those other pieces that need to be taken into account in terms of, you know, abilities, safety, and level of care required. So, and I'm sure there are many other things that I can't speak to in, you know, complete succinction, but I think a lot of people would be saying, wow, you should have bought a lottery ticket too.
Well, I had a lot of people say that to me, that I was very fortunate. And I felt very blessed, because not only is it a great place to be, but it's 5 minutes from where I live, which is just the icing on the cake.
Yes, yeah, even better.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So I'm wondering if you could maybe take a little bit or a moment to talk about, you know, your transitioning role as a caregiver. So what year was it when Lynn came into McCormick home?
Lynn, actually, she came here 3.5 years ago now. She's been a resident for 3.5 years. We came in September of 2020. In fact, we came in the middle of the damn panic.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say the damn panic is that one day I was in to see Lynn, and of course we were wearing masks, and she was kind of unaware of the fact that there was a pandemic on.
Right.
And one day she looked at me and just said, "Is that damn panic thing still on?" And I said, "Yes, it is, and you've just invented the best word I've heard to describe the pandemic." So there's a moment of great humor that I could never forget when she said that.
I'm going to say that one. Well, you know, I of course know Lynn, and got to spend some time with Lynn as she was on the same floor as my father-in-law was.
That's right. Oh, I remember that.
Yes, and you know, to that point of humor, you and I have joked and laughed about this several times, but, you know, my father-in-law had his eye on Lynn.
Well, let me tell you, I had my eye on Lino. And the reason is that Lynn had told me one day that she's met a man in here and he wants to marry her.
Oh.
And she looked at me and smiled and said, "And he's a millionaire." And I said, "Well, then you go for it, girl."
Well, you know, I can actually tell you, no, he wasn't.
Okay. Well, she did end up with his watch, I think. I don't know if that was like an engagement or not. But anyway, we have a lot of laughs once in a while around here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think, you know, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, it does.
To have those little chuckles of moments, for sure. And so, now, how would you describe Lynn while she's here? I think it's just important for people to know that although Lynn can't be with us at this particular moment to have this conversation, but just maybe you could describe what her days look like.
Well, her days are very full. When she first came here, she was up on the second floor on Maple Grove.
Yeah.
And, she was able to walk, and she did a lot of walking in the hallways and was always missed out on activities because she'd be walking.
Yeah.
Well, about 8 months ago now, she moved to the first floor to Memory Lane, and she had so many falls when she was out walking that we thought it the best that she be in a wheelchair. And she hasn't fallen for the last several months because she's in a wheelchair.
And that's good news.
And that is very good news, very good news. So as a result, she really just kind of is wheeled into the activity room, and she's doing all kinds of wonderful things. And I drop in once in a while because the Life Enrichment Center for Memory Lane, you actually publish what goes on every day.
Yeah.
There's bingo, there's baking, there's music sessions, there's a lot happening. And where she didn't take part because she was a wee bit confused, I think, and afraid. But now she seems to join in and loves being in the great room with people. And but every day there's tons of events on, which is great. Keeps her active.
Well, I think that social engagement, that, the cognitive engagement is so important. And these are some of the things that the foundation helps to fund in order to ensure that, it goes beyond what the government funds. And we know government dollars can only go so far.
Right.
And so for the foundation, we look at, we take our marching orders from McCormick Care Group, and they have identified life enrichment activities as one of their highest priority needs. So everything from the music and entertainment to some of the excursions that take place to, offsetting the cost of baking supplies to, and they may seem small and little, but the truth is they do give people meaning and purpose.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other day, Lynn said she needed to go shopping because she wanted to bake a cake. And I said, well, you just made one last week. I saw a little video of you doing that, because one of the great things that Sabrina and Simona do as the recreation specialists here is that they'll send me every couple days a little video of Lynn doing something. Because I come in maybe 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But on the other days, they keep me informed of what she's doing with little video clips, and they have her up dancing in front of her wheelchair and sometimes bum dancing in the wheelchair. So she's pretty active now.
Well, I know Sabrina also commented to me on Lynn's wit.
Oh.
And that she's quick and quite witty.
Yeah, she surprises me, because before she came into McCormick, I didn't really think she was that quick and witty. I never noticed it as much, but now when I come in, she's always got a little comment and a little dig or a little quip, and very quick, which is nice to see.
Yeah, yeah.
I laugh more with her and at her now than I think I ever did. Yeah.
What an unusual experience, and probably unexpected. Maybe that's a better word than unusual.
Yeah.
A little unexpected, I'm sure, for you.
Yeah. No, I don't come in. I mean, every day I come in, you never know what kind of a day it's going to be. She may be in a good mood, or she may be very distant and very uninvolved. But when she's on her game, it's like when she played golf. She was a good golfer.
Yeah.
And when she's on her game with her wit, she's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah.
So now I've heard rumor that she still plays golf here.
She does. She plays in her mind. And on a nice summer day, you can just see some of the comments she'll make that she had a good round today. And I'll say, well, I'm glad you did, because I had a terrible round today. So we do joke around a bit, which is good. Yeah.
Now, how about you, Don? How do you keep yourself engaged and busy, and what kind of coping strategies do you have for yourself?
Well, the main thing is really I volunteer at a couple of golf courses at River Bend and Fire Rock, and the residents and staff at both mainly at Riverbend. They're just amazing, and they're very aware of Lynn's situation, so they'll ask about her, and I joke around with a lot of the members and the staff, so that keeps me kind of loose. And then I play a bit of golf as well at both courses, Fire Rock and
That's a nice perk.
Yeah, it's a nice perk. And, it gets me out physically, it gets me in front of people and keeps me kind of my mind off everything.
Yeah.
And so when I come in to see Lynn, I'm ready to see her. I'm not in a depressed state.
Right.
So,
right.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think that can also be, that kind of community support and engagement is really, really important. And I'm wondering if there are any other connections that have helped enhance your caregiving journey.
Yeah, McCormick here has a spousal support group, and usually every couple of weeks, the spouses of some of the residents, we meet and share concerns and talk about things, and we're all at various levels. So when I first joined the group, I was listening to everyone going through what their spouses or loved ones were going through. And I thought, gee, we were very fortunate at the beginning, because I would take Lynn home to the condo and make her lunch. I tried to get her to clean a couple times, but that didn't go over so well. So we kind of left that alone.
I'd be with her on that.
Yeah, I think so. But we would joke about it. She said, that's not going to happen.
Oh.
Right. So I'd make her favorite lunch or favorite sandwich and things. And then, of course, a couple of times we even walked home when she was able to walk. So that was good. But the spousal support group is really an amazing group, because we're all at various stages and we're all going through the same things. We talk about things like guilt. I mean, we feel guilty, a lot of us, because we've still got an outside life and we're functioning, whereas our loved one maybe isn't, and you feel kind of guilty. And sometimes you don't know whether to tell them what you're doing or not tell them because of the guilt of feeling that. So guilt is a big factor, and we try to deal with it, in those meetings. And that's been great for me to go through, because everybody's got a story and we can all relate to each other.
Yeah. And being able to pull on somebody else's experience, perhaps, just given the different levels that you may have, or to be able to provide insight into an experience for people, so that they can, have a tip or a trick.
Right.
I'm now thinking about tips or tricks, and I know that there are times when, in that caregiver journey, not so much with my father-in-law Lino when he was here, but my grandmother had dementia time ago, and my mom was primary caregiver, but I would go and in fact, I was rarely me. She always thought I was her sister-in-law Peggy, actually, which gave me an interesting glimpse into a different Nana, if you will.
Right, exactly.
But I know when it came time to go home, these were tricky moments. And learning how to deal with, like I don't know, being creative, I guess.
Right.
About how that visit works. And some of that creativity for me was pretending to be Peggy in that moment.
Right.
But what are your thoughts? Do you have any?
Well, yeah, one of the tips and tricks that worked well for me was that I would come in at various times over the 3.5 years, and it was always awkward to leave, because, you felt like, I hate to leave right now, but I just feel like you need to have a little rest, kind of thing I would be saying to Lynn. But lately, we've got into a point where I try to come in about, maybe 10:45, and then take her to lunch to her table and exit as her food comes, because that's a natural point to kind of leave, as opposed to making up a little white lie. Sometimes I have to go for an appointment, a doctor's appointment, and things like that. So you try to kind of have tips, tricks, whatever, to exit in a way that you don't feel guilty or that she doesn't get upset.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll come in after 2 days and she'll be in tears, and at one point she said to me, "Oh, I haven't seen you for 2 or 3 months."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it's only been 2 or 3 days, really, but, I know time goes quickly for you here, and so you're always kind of accommodating and adjusting.
Yeah.
But there's lots to learn about being a caregiver, let me tell you."
Yes, and I know from chatting with other people as well, some of the advantages of coming into a long-term care home, it means that you don't have to be the 24/7 caregiver.
Right.
That you can create a different relationship
Yeah.
with the person you love,
Yeah.
instead of being the caregiver in the first instance. I'm sure that was
That's right.
helpful.
Oh, definitely. And as I tell people, I think McCormick long-term care home is more like a long-term caring home.
That's a great line.
Yeah.
Can I use that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I like that.
Because you can tell the staff, the volunteers, everyone really cares. And the care that Lynn's getting is, to me, second to none, because they just treat her like a family member. And it's so gratifying as someone coming in every couple of days to see that they really do look after her well. And if she says she wants to go home, I just say, "Hey, I could never take care of you the way they do here." Because I'm a grouchy old man now. And she looks at me and she says, "Oh yeah, I forgot."
So she acknowledges it.
Yeah, it does, yeah. So we try to make it easy for her to be
There's
here.
a bit coming out of you.
Exactly, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that for the staff, residents are like family.
Mm-hmm.
They get to know them so well on so many different levels, and even myself included, I get to know a variety of different people, and you care about these individuals and what's happening in their lives, and I think that's why sharing these stories is so important, because it gives people a glimpse into McCormick. Aside from that big building on the hill, there are people inside, and from talking to others there, they may have concerns about bringing their loved one to a long-term care, not specifically McCormick, but just going to long-term care in general. And so I can't speak to other organizations, but I can say for McCormick here that people, they're family.
Right.
It's one big caring family.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why the reputation of McCormick is so solid. Everyone I talk to, they all know that McCormick's one of the best places to be. And I can verify it just from the experience of Lynn the past 3.5 years. Yeah. So.
Well, and I was thinking, just as you were talking there, that whole family caring component of staff is the reason people reach out to make donations.
Yeah.
From a foundation perspective, we facilitate the gift and the giving, and we steward the gift to make sure it's going where the donor would like it to go. But in truth, it's the staff who inspire that gift because of the excellent care that they provide.
Oh, no question. No question.
So I'm wondering, Dawn, are there any coping mechanisms or resources that you found particularly helpful in your caregiving?
Well, friends and family, first of all. We have some very good friends and good family to kind of fall back on. And then, as I say, the spousal support group has been great. Sabrina and Simona, they have just done so much to make me feel comfortable, because they treat Lynn like a queen.
Yeah.
And they call her beautiful lady, and they love the way she dresses. And so, I mean, really, the support staff here has just been so good, And the volunteers. I mean, we happen to have a neighbor of ours that's a volunteer here, Lanny. And and she takes special care of Lynn too when she sees her. So we're very blessed.
And that's pretty typical of London, I think, from the perspective of, not too many degrees of separation.
Right.
Everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
To some degree. So I'm also wondering if you had any advice to give to other caregivers who might be listening, anything else that we hadn't touched on. So any thoughts that you might have around that?
Well, I think the main thing is that you need to be very aware of the fact that the care you give to a loved one at home is very, very different from the care that 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people can give. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a neighbor that tried to look after their mother, and there was 3 kids, and they had 3 8-hour shifts, and it just wore them out.
Yeah.
So I would say to any caregiver who's thinking about leaving your spouse or looking after your spouse at home, it's very, very difficult, emotionally, physically, in all areas. And do not be afraid to reach out to a long-term caring home, because the care is amazing.
You know, I just on that note too, I was thinking about, actually now I got sidetracked on caring home and how I think that's such a great term. I'm going to use that. But how these kind of decisions affect the entire family, that it's not singularly about a person, but it involves so many other people.
Right.
And so your point is well made and hopefully well taken.
And the other thing I would mention too, to anyone think about it, the cost of having a loved one in a long-term care home is very, very reasonable if you travel at all. I mean, for less than a hotel room nowadays on a vacation, you get 24-hour care, medical attention, food, bathing, all the activities of daily life are looked after. And in fact, I kid up in a couple of the people that I, mainly Carrie, I asked her one day, she's the head nurse here, that I said, is it possible for us to get a bunk bed in Lynn's room so that I could move in? I'd like to go on the meal plan, and I think it'd be great. I could look after her better if I was in the same room, but apparently that's not in the rules.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's
But it is very reasonable when you look at everything that's involved, and the freedom that I have as a caregiver is amazing, because everything's done here for her. So the price is well worth it.
Yeah, and I think it is important for caregivers to remember that they do have their own life to keep living.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I'm thinking we're coming close to the end here, and I'm just wondering if you had any words of encouragement or wisdom. I know we just shared some other tips and tricks, but and maybe perhaps it was just the fact that you need to take care of yourself. Right.
I think that's very important, that to be the best me that I can be for Lynn, I've got to be freed up to kind of look after myself too. So it's very important that we be caring and sharing with our loved one. And I think I try to be on a high every time I come in for that reason, that she doesn't see me in a down state, so that I can pick her up, so to speak, emotionally. So that's a big part of, if I don't feel like coming in, I don't come in, because if it's just not a good day, I don't want her to see me like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good word of wisdom for sure. I'm also I'm going to ask you this next question, but I want to preface it with the fact that, you know, what the foundation funds is beyond what the government funds. And I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier in our conversation by letting people know that, you know, what the government funds, it can only go so far, and generous donations help augment the life enrichment activities, enhance the care, fund special projects, and a variety of other things. And so with that in mind, if you had the opportunity to thank a donor personally, what would you say?
Wow, that's a great question. I would just say that, you know, in a lot of organizations, when donations are made, you really don't see the effect of it. But at McCormick, you really do see it. I mean, you see it in the care and the activities that are provided for the residents here. So I would just thank the donor for everything they do to make my wife's life a lot better and enriched.
No, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So, well, Don, I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us for this episode and sharing your story.
It's a pleasure.
I'm going to say, any last thoughts or comments?
No, I think we've covered most everything. I just, as I say to people, I'm just so happy and blessed that Lynn's in a place like this, and I would recommend anyone that if your spouse has dementia and you can get into McCormick, go for it.
So, okay, well, thank you again, Don, for joining us today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and your experiences. To our listeners, I would encourage you to reflect on this powerful conversation. And I think, Don, your story is just one of many that happen within the organization. And I know from other conversations I've had, not in a podcast format, but in one-on-one, that your story mirrors others in terms of their appreciation.
I would hope so.
And so as we bring this episode to a close, I would like to leave you all to be inspired by Don's experience and consider how you too may be able to get involved with the mission of McCormick Care Foundation. So that can be through financial support, it can be through volunteering, and it can be through just calling to find out more and sharing this story on your socials. We'd really appreciate all of that. So like, subscribe, and leave us a comment to let us know what you think. We'd really appreciate all of that. Thank you to everyone.